All right, it's on record now, so we're good. Go ahead, Michelle.
Okay, so here's my presentation from Kettlebells in Physical Education. And I'm going to start out with just some sport specific, but I'm also going to talk about how it doesn't have to be sport specific to also be used, if that makes sense. So let's go to the next one. So really in learning kettlebells, I just teach that there's two positions that you need to learn. One is the overhead, and that's just holding the kettlebell over your head when your arm is straight, the elbow's not bent, and you basically are stacking your bones when you are holding this weight. And that's what a judge counts when you are in the competition, but it's also a great tool. As you can see, my stabilizers are working, um, as well as to hold up the bell. Um, the handle's at a 45-degree angle in your palm, and your fingers are actually very relaxed. And the kettlebell is motionless at the top. So I kind of put how it really helps with posture, with bone density and stacking. It's basically an upside down handstand in a way. Any questions? Okay. So I also in that to that 45-degree angle. So why the 45-degree angle? Well, the way the competition kettlebell is designed, um, when the bell's at a 45-degree angle, the weight of the bell is centered. So that way if you see how I held it more in the center of the handle on the picture on the very far right, um, my arm is tense, my forearm's all tense, and the weight's actually a little more closer to my head. So if my shoulder tends to rotate a little bit. Holding it that way also is dangerous because if my arm should get tired, it's going to hit me on the head. Whereas the other correct 45 keeps it in front of me. Does that make sense? Got it? Okay.
Where I can't tell that the weight's in front of you.
It's basically straight up and down, kind of overhead like here. And what I'm saying is, should my arm, like in this photo, get tired, the weight of the bell is centered so that it's going to fall forward and not rotate and hit me on forward on the head,
Okay.
right here. And again, it's something that we always put people in those positions so they could feel what was correct and understand what wasn't correct. They'll feel the tension, they'll feel their shoulder rotate. So well, this is, a lot of times we did this in physical person too. The second position that we move the bells to is called the rack position. And basically, in these photographs, you can see both the lifters, their arms are making a little rack that the bell sits on. Ideally, you want the elbow closer to the hip bone because that's how you're going to launch the bell upward, actually using that hip. There is a slight spine curvature, but the weight's again resting more on the hip and the torso. And the back is actually quite relaxed. Um, and the fingers are relaxed too. As you can see, there's a 45-degree angle. And it takes time to develop. A lot of people are very tight in their shoulders, so their elbows may not get as low as they could. But again, that's something the individual develops over time. We always like to say the best rack position for you is the one that you're most comfortable in and you can launch the kettlebell from. Okay? So then we have two movements to learn, a swinging movement and a pressing movement. So the swinging movement is more like a pendulum upward and close to the body. So we're not swinging outward, we're swinging upward. Um, the end position for the swinging motion is either in the overhead, so swinging all the way to that overhead position, or swinging it to the rack position, which what we call a clean. The leg and hip driven movements to float the kettlebell upward to react to the either position. The grip is relaxed. And what happens at the top or at the rotation, the heel of the palm and the wrist kind of push the handle, like that kind of a motion. So the KB kettlebell goes over and lands back on the back of the arm. If your grip is too tight, it's kind of hard, and then the ball kind of hits you. And you might see a lot of people do that at first, but the idea is move the handle around the bell instead of the bell around the handle. All right. The other movement's a press, and that's moving the kettlebell from the rack position to the overhead. And there's just three ways to do it. You just using your arm, using the legs a little bit to help push it upwards, and then a jerk, which is more of a dynamic jump to launch the kettlebell upwards and to the top position. You kind of catch it at the top. Again,
So,
you can use, go
question.
ahead.
In the competition, it doesn't really matter which one of those used to get over the head. They could either press it, or they could push press it, or they could jerk it.
A lot
Or
of
is there
competitions,
competitions that are clean and press, clean and jerk? Is there two different exercises?
in some, yes. There's a guy did a pentathlon one where one of the exercises was a clean and a press because he did not want you um, to use your legs. So it's just showing how strong your just the one arm movement is. In a traditional
You guys are going to
competition,
have, you're going to go to this competition at the end of the month, in a couple of weeks, the nationals.
mhm.
Is it, can you use any of these three things in that competition as long as you get the head bar over the kettlebell overhead?
Yeah,
It doesn't
they
matter which one you use.
in my competition that I'm going to for the world one,
Yes.
they look for what they call the second dip, which means they're kind of looking for you more of a jerk movement instead of a
Okay.
push press. I
Okay.
do know with the when you get into the more senior divisions, the veterans in their 60s and 70s, they just can't get it overhead. They just want you to get it overhead. If you're push pressing it because maybe your joints are
Okay.
you're older, you're 75, you're 80 years old, then they'll allow it, if that makes sense.
Okay. Okay. We
Yeah.
can go on from there now. That was just a question.
Right. And technically, you want to jerk it anyways because it's a faster, more dynamic movement that you're going to get more repetitions out of anyways, rather than pressing only. But it's still a good exercise. So just to kind of see the movements, I put in two videos. This first one here is a snatch. She is a Russian kettlebell champion, and that bell is a 24-kilo bell that she is lifting. So you can kind of see her movements there. You might hear her breathing. And you can see in her physique wise too, she's got a lot of leg strength. And then to show clean and jerk, this, this lifter he's using, oops, what happened? There we go. There's the clean, jerk.
So how many of these do you do per minute?
Get tone resonant here.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so oops,
How
sorry.
many do you do in a minute?
That was he went for 10 minutes straight. So we got, was it 95 reps in 10 minutes? And those are two 32-kilo bells that he's using.
That's kilos.
Mhm.
32 kilo. Okay.
32 kilos each. Okay, so our basic lift and sport exercises that we have, I just listed them here. Swing, clean, which is a swing to rack, just drop it back down and repeat it. Half snatch is a way you swing it overhead, but then you drop it back down to the rack and so forth. And you can see they're all just kind of different, using the different two movements and the different two locations in just varying different ways to create an exercise. And we used to do that at the gym I had with Moses. This was our warm up. We either did 30 seconds a side, running through all of those. We've also used it as a drill or an exercise, and you just vary the time or the reps per side or vary the number of rounds. Like you could go through each of these 30 seconds and then do it again. You can vary the kettlebell weights. Maybe you go minute with a lighter weight, all the exercises, and then 30 seconds with a heavier weight, or you can vary all the above. And that's just kind of even some basic things that oddly enough keep kettlebells interesting in the sport, but you can tweak it to however you want to do it. So maybe you want to concentrate on heavier weights but shorter reps, or you just go long. I've done it where we've gone minute, and repeated it 3 times.
So if you just, I'm just throwing this question out.
Yeah.
If you were doing a training session and you were going to do like 5 sets, what would be the time that you would use for each set? Would you do that for time or for numbers?
It depends on what your goal is. A lot of times, it's a combination of both what I do for training, where um, I might use a heavier bell and maybe do 3 rounds of just 15, 15 on each arm in a snatch movement to get myself a little stronger. So when I compete with 16s, it feels lighter. Um, Also to train some of my grip and everything, sometimes I've gone down to say a 12 and try to do 100 reps an arm or 120 reps an arm so my joints can
Consistent
handle
or like
100.
5 sets of 20 or something like that, or just a consistent 120?
Sometimes it's all the above, to be fair. Sometimes she'll put me down and we'll just do minute, 10 sets with a 12, but I'm trying to keep pace of 20 reps a minute.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
so
So
there's a lot of variables.
you vary the reps per minute.
Hmm.
Okay. Okay. Answered my question.
Sure. And so talking about swings, we hear about Russian swings and American swings. You've probably seen a lot of the CrossFitters do that quote unquote American straight arm forward, and they use more of a hip thrust to go forward. We follow kind of the quote unquote Russian, which is where they make a pendulum movement with the hips and they're kind of push up the kettlebell so it flies upward and the arm just kind of directs it. So I just kind of wrote some things that the lifters do for a swing. It's like, why swing out when the rack and overhead positions are up? And the shortest distance is a straight line. It's more like a J-shaped pendulum. It's efficient. It's anatomical breathing. So we inhale when the bell goes up, is traveling upwards, and we exhale as the bell's traveling downwards. More like a hook grip, so it's relaxed. And it's more akin to an upward jump motion. If you saw, especially in her snatch video, she kind of swings back, like you bring your arms back, like you're going to jump up and go forward. And then I just made a quote here from Valery Fedorenko, who was um, he was a Russian champion ever since he was like 17 years old, like consistently. And he teaches here in the United States. He's the one that's a truck driver now, trying to promote kettlebells for truck drivers. Um, and he says, once the kettlebells reach my chest, it's floating. Why do I need to make it go any higher? I've engaged my legs, my back, my shoulders. He's just like, why be so tense? It's doing its work. And he also says it's done with straight arms. And he said that he knew a 300-plus-pound NFL lineman who was injured with a 35-pound kettlebell swinging it that way because he was inflexible, not because he was not strong. And you see, again, but just that kind of swing takes too much time, and too much time means fewer reps. So you see, our goal is many repetitions. And I've put here, why should it be in physical education? Well, it teaches you how to use momentum, breathing, all of your muscles to lift a weight continuously for the endurance to be strong and fast. So a lot of times with these other lifts is a high number. If you do 100 plus in clean and jerk and 200 plus in snatch and jerk only in 10 minutes, that's exceptional. It's also minimal equipment. You just need kettlebell, you need timer, counter, just those little hand clickers to count or somebody counting. Um, and you can do, just maybe protect your basketball court floor in case the bells get dropped with some mats. You don't need a lot of space to do it. You can do it outside. It builds an athletic foundation. And then there's some fun aspects like juggling or flipping that's kind of cardio, but hand-eye coordination as well. I found that anyone in any physical ability can start using the kettlebells. If you're overweight, you can use them. If you're very thin, you can use them. If you need to build some mobility, you can use them. You just might have to start off really light and work your way into it. There's endless combinations of exercises. I haven't even gotten into the ones that, well, I will in the later thing, but you can squat with them, you can curl them, you can do rows with them, you can do a lot of other dumbbell exercises using a kettlebell as well. So the combination's kind of endless, in my opinion. The sport lifts build cardio, power, and speed and endurance that I believe can translate into other sports. I mean, and it's fun. There's fun competitions and level of achievements that can be created. This can be done at every individual school. They can come up with their own levels. I know Grant came up with some different ideas of what you should be capable of doing. They can do the same thing. They can hold their own little meet, have their own little medals, and it could just be fun. And then I finally put in there, this is sports lift teach lifting in the real world. I mean, you're going to pick up something heavy, bring it to your chest, and you might have to lift it overhead like your carry-on in an airport. You're going to have to carry groceries. You're going to have to lift something upwards to your chest and try to put something over your head away to storage. And then I put here, because we talked about it too, these are some of what my coach calls, or Russians call, the general physical preparedness exercises. These are things that I do in my training to help me be a better lifter in snatch. So I have pull-ups in there, bar hangs on my fingers to strengthen my grips, push-ups, both wide and narrow, jump squats, where you kind of from a jumping position, kind of a squat position, jumping upward, static squats, where I just hold it. I do abs, core, back extension, tricep dips, we jump rope, one-legged squats, pistol squats, all kinds of lunges. And then I put a few on the other side there with kettlebells. You could do jump squats with a kettlebell held on the back here if you want to. Suitcase deadlifts, you can do farmer's carries, farmer's holds, goblet squats, rows, one arm swings. You can alternate your swings, and you can even use them in a little bit like halos going around your head if you want to do some shoulder mobility work, or windmills where it's a rotational on the torso kind of thing. And again, it could be just mixed up. Maybe you do like you were saying, Patrick, what you could do is maybe start off with a 5-minute snatch set, then you do some suitcase deadlifts, and then maybe finish with some pull-ups and some ab work. And there's a training session pretty much. As we say too, let's see, I've got it in here. And we don't really do Turkish get-ups with them. And this is another quote from Valeria Fedorenko. And I've seen people try to do those get-ups with a heavy weight, and I see their knees just all wonky and strained. And, as he said, it's more of a demonstration of strength than a training tool, because there's so many opportunities for your shoulder and knee in an angle position where it could get injured. So if you're going to want to teach it to kids or anybody, it is something they should master without a weight overhead first. And that's what I'll say about Turkish get-ups. Here. One hand swing versus two hand swings. Again, from Valeri, he's just saying a one arm swing is much more beneficial athletically because of the kettlebell handle is hard for a big person. I can barely get my two hands in there. Kind of my pinkies don't go around the handle, and I'm not a very large individual. Um, it says two arm swings usually have to have a much wider stance to get both arms through the center of the legs. And he's turning it into a different exercise. He's not saying it's wrong to do them, but it's a different one. And he feels one arm swings make you stronger. And then he kind of talked about uh, what he was still able to do, a one arm deadlift of 385 pounds when he weighed 75 kilograms and he didn't have to use a strap. And the one arm stuff kind of goes to some of the points that you guys mentioned too, of making sure the athlete's balanced as well. You know, if your left side's a little weak, that's my non-dominant side. It's always going to do less reps than my right. But I try to get to the number I need with my left first. And then my coach also gives me a running program. And I think youth today kids, they need to go outside and run. I'm not saying they have to be fast, but they do need to run. You know, and you guys know all the different drills you could do. Tabatas, you can go run and then sprint the last, 10 yards or whatever. You can do longer, slower runs for endurance purposes. And then I wrote down the fun, bleacher running if you've got it, hills if you have it, all the different dynamics that you guys can see as strength coaches. I'm just saying, let the kids just have fun with it and do like a little fun run test or something. Um, and then the running drills I put down, she has me go through these a lot of times once a week. I'll start with a short run and then do these different drills. There's my skipping, my forward lunges where you lift up the knee really high before you set it down, running with the heels back, side lunges, foot to foot jumps. And again, this could all be scaled just that's appropriate for children, kids at their ages. Um, I talked to my daughter and put a goal up there that said maybe by the time they're in fifth grade, they can run a half a mile. Maybe by eighth grade, they can do a mile. And maybe 2 to 3 by the time they're a senior. Doesn't say have to be
So,
fast, it just says they have to
so these
finish.
drills are something without a kettlebell. Then you would do them work or conditioning for what you're doing when you do the kettlebells, right?
Correct.
Okay.
This is building my endurance. And so I basically my running program is Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays, and then I lift Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday's a rest day.
So I got a question.
Mhm.
It says sprints 100% or 80%. What does that mean?
Sprint, 100% sprint means you're going to go all out. You're running as fast as you can run. 80%
Okay.
is you're running faster than normal, but you're not all out trying to sprint as
Oh,
fast as
okay.
you can.
Okay. Okay.
So it's just kind of like
So,
run.
okay. So if all this kettlebell training gives you cardio, why do you need to go out and run?
That's a good question. They do it because
Thank you.
they feel that in the training that is these running programs are more for your conditioning of your heart also, and to
Well, but what, but you just told me that the, that the kettlebell workout is cardio.
mhm.
So that doesn't work your heart.
It does because I can get my heart rate up in like 3 minutes if depending on what weight I'm
Yeah,
doing and
yeah,
how
yeah, I
fast.
know. And so that's why I'm asking you, why, and I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just
No,
saying why do
they
I
do it
why do the running when you don't have to?
to keep
If
your
if
lungs in shape and for blood flow.
so then I don't understand what you're telling me. To keep my lungs in shape, what do you mean?
I mean, so my goal with the kettlebell is to be able to lift it at a high pace for an endurance time with a very low heart rate.
Okay. All right.
So I have
So
found with
is it
this conditioning program, it keeps, it's an additional working out for my lungs and heart and muscles so that when I go back to the kettlebell again, it's easier.
so cardio is cardio. It doesn't the heart doesn't know how it ramps up. Okay. So all I'm asking is, and again, I'm not saying any of this is wrong. I'm just saying that, if I'm getting cardio, what you call cardio in with the kettlebells, why do I want to go out and run?
It overall creates, well, I've noticed, I'll give you myself, for what I've noticed when I'm doing the running program and with the belt, using the kettlebells, even though that's a cardio workout in itself, it gets my heart rate up. But by running, she'll give me a running drill where I'll do a long run and keep my heart rate low, which means I'm not trying to go fast. I'm just moving.
Okay, but
Um,
I could do that with so if I understand correctly, she's trying to keep your heart rate between like 120 and 150,
mhm,
correct? Okay, so
correct.
that's cardiac output. I could do the very same thing using a kettlebell and working on my technique.
You could do that too.
Yeah, so all I'm saying is, well, why waste time running when I can improve my technique and do the very same thing?
Is is this guy going to be back there when you go back there in a couple weeks? Valerie, what's his name?
Valerie
Is he going to be
Federico.
there? Is he going to
Um,
be there?
he's not going to be there, but I have met him before and done workshops with him. Yes.
Okay. Why don't you ask him, or even ask some of the people back there what Grant's asking? Because I think
Okay.
that's a legitimate question too. Because I had that question when I was in college when they said that you had to do all this cardio stuff and they can't do it in a weight room. And I said, "You're telling me that I cannot get this guy's heart rate up for this amount of time in a weight room? I'm telling I can do circuit training and do that and not have to take him out and run him." So,
Right.
like and I'm kind of we're listening to what Grant's saying. Grant, if I'm wrong, but is this 100% needed to do the sprint training, or is this just something that people do on an alternate day? But is it really needed to improve kettlebell performance? Because you're doing cardio anyway. That's just a question maybe to ask those guys when you get back there and
I
see
will, and
what
I'll
they're.
ask my coach too, because she a lot of people do just use the kettlebells as their cardio. But I've actually found it helps me in breathing with my heart too.
Well, but so again, I'm not trying to argue with you or say
No,
this is
no.
wrong. I'm just asking a question. Okay. So I can do so if my goal is to be national champion in kettlebells, okay, which I'm assuming that is your goal, right?
Mhm.
Then I want to do as much technique work as I can. Okay.
Mhm.
So now, I can get twice the number of reps if I don't waste time running. Okay. So I think where you're seeing the improvement is that, okay, I'm for lack of a better word, I'm getting in shape, or I'm doing more conditioning because I'm running. Well, I could do the same thing with kettlebells and you'd have the same result. Okay.
I
And
see what you're
so
saying.
now, I'm sorry.
I do understand what you're saying. I think I'm also including it in here um, as something that if they did do a PE program to help with other sports that do require running.
That
So,
and all that's legitimate. Okay. And that's why I say I'm not necessarily disagreeing with it.
mhm.
I'm just asking a question as far as what I thought I heard, you saying. Now, the other thing is I I I see a purpose for the 20 and or the 10 to 20 meter sprints
Hmm.
and those types of things. Okay, because there's value in that.
And the lunges and everything. Yeah.
But it's not necessarily a conditioning thing if you're working on speed. Okay, and so again, it goes back to what's your purpose? Why are we doing this?
Right.
Okay, and
Okay.
that's all I'm saying. And again, there's a legitimate reason to do all this. I'm just trying to find out what it is.
Okay.
When in your case, the goal is to win national championships, right? And do as many snatches or cleans or whatever it is
Hmm.
in X amount of time. Well, the more efficient I can be in that, the better I'm going to perform, and also the less energy expenditure I'm going to have. So the point is for you, the point is why waste time running? And I would just like to know,
Yeah.
again, because she may have a real good reason for it, and I look like a dumbass for asking the question. So so
I'll ask,
but so
you know what, I will pose that question to her.
yeah,
It may
yeah,
just
that'd be,
be
yeah. I'd
she's
love to know
looking
the
at it
answer.
at a way to keep my heart and lungs and muscles still very athletic, but as a recovery rest period sort of scenario as well. And that's what she uses is running.
Well, you're so so you're right. It could be recovery. Your longer, slower runs are not very athletic because even I can do those.
Yeah.
Careful.
Do well. Okay, almost I can do those. And so,
Next
so
time, next time I see you,
yeah.
I'm going to ask you to do a couple of them just to make sure.
Well, it means you're never going to see me again. So
Yeah. Well, I
unless
was
your
gonna,
son tries to get me in trouble. So just ask. I'm just curious.
yeah,
Sorry.
I'll ask her specifically, but I was also thinking and putting it in here as a mindset for like to get a fifth grader to start to be somewhat athletic. They can have a little gas tank of running and endurance so that if they want to play a sport, they got a good base to work off of. I think that's what I was trying to get at.
So I see your yeah. Okay, go ahead. Forget it. I'm done with it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, but I'm going to pose a
Yeah.
question to my coach. Okay. How can
Okay.
sport lifting develop? That's in other sports. So I was thinking of, football players in the future, or hockey players, and some of the things that you guys mentioned about, understanding momentum, understanding acceleration, understanding deceleration, relaxation while doing your sport, breathing for max O2 intake and how to max CO2 release, breathing in time to keep your heart rate lowered because you can also, elevate your heart rate by just hyperventilating. Um, Using all your muscles to achieve a goal, kind of balance between your left and your right, core strength, grip strength, understanding efficiency, and it develops the joint and ligament tendon strength and endurance. So you're not just your muscles, it's all the other things that go around, and it builds stabilizer muscles. And I would just say that for strength and conditioning coaches to get creative to see how you could use the lifts for your individual sports to develop your players. Like I said,
So
snatch could enhance a back spring or an upward jump or cardio speed and endurance and some hand-eye coordination. So there's several things.
okay. So do you have evidence that it doing kettlebell snatch increases vertical jump?
I don't have any evidence of it, because
Have they
nobody's
ever done
really
any?
used it. Um, be fair, actually, we did a couple of tests in our gym in Vegas that we had. We would test to see how far we could jump up and we make a little chalk mark on the wall and then try and go back again and get her. At least we could hit it again. We never lost it. At least we could gain a little bit more, or we were still able to do it.
After how
That's
much
my
time?
second question for you then, when you go back to the nationals, have they ever done any research on that to see if it increases
Yeah.
vertical jump?
Okay.
You know, because they would know that you're there. So find the guys and do that. That's
And what did they do? What
yeah.
Hmm.
was the protocol?
Right. A lot of it hasn't really been studied here, so I have to double check with the coaches in Russia and Ukraine. And then I put down here some just basic curriculum ideas. Not saying they have to do it, but I kind of modeled it after what I do, saying 2 days of lifting, 2 days of running, and then Friday's just a fun day. You could make it, and then for the elementary kids is kind of what I thought. Middle school, maybe even to high school, you may be a little more focused. But the idea is just let them play. It could be a game. Use games to teach skill. Like you can use hopscotch to teach how to, balance on one leg or use jump ropes. There's always relays you could do where say there's a kid that lifts a kettlebell for a minute, puts it down, and then the next person goes in and see how many they can do in that next 2 minutes, and then just have like little teams.
With
So this would
kindergarten
be kind of a
and elementary school kids, do you really want them to do and see how many they can lift in a time period?
With those kids, we had some young kids do it, and their minds don't think 100 is a lot. It's kind of funny. But these kids, I'm thinking, we're sticking with very light weights with them. I would not even go
Uh,
heavier than 6 kilos for them. And
no,
that's probably
I
maybe a fifth grader.
and I understand that, but the the technique is not perfected,
No,
and so you put them under the gun, then then it becomes a lot more dangerous. And I don't care if you got a 2 kilo kettlebell, it becomes a lot more dangerous because the technique isn't solidified.
right. Then that's why you stick with the light bells and you let them do many
No,
repetitions.
the light bell doesn't mean anything. If the technique is bad, they can still get hurt because they don't have good technique, is what I'm saying.
so at that level, would you wouldn't do as many as you can. It would be more like developing technique. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
No,
Yeah,
no,
it'd
she
be more
said that.
like have them do 5 reps aside and put it down.
Yeah,
Or
that's fine. That's fine. But you said that you could play games like you can see how many you can do in a minute. That's what I'm arguing. I'm not arguing they shouldn't be doing that or they can't do it. Okay, they certainly can do it. And I'm just saying that if you have a competition where we're going to see how many you can do in a minute, I don't care what the weight of the kettlebell is, they're going to get hurt because the technique isn't solidified, or I don't know if solidified is the right word, but their technique is still the drizzle and shits, and the faster they go, the more it's going to be the drizzle and shits. And if you want proof of that, go to USA weightlifting meet next week in Colorado Springs and watch the horrendous technique of some of those kids.
I think that's a good point. And I
it's a
think
good
that's
point.
I think that with kids, I don't know, and if anybody, Michelle, has done this with kids, but I would like to find out what their thought process is, because I would think that the thought process that they would have is very similar to what Grant and I and probably Larry have, is when you're working with kids, you're not looking for weight, you're looking for technique. And I kind of see what you're saying there, but I think if I was going to do some type of anything, I would do it very low repetition and worry and do more about technique.
Yeah, she
But then
said
I would
five
like
by
to see
five. Okay,
somebody,
yeah.
I'd like to see somebody who's done this. There's a guy that did this up in, he was doing this up in Paso Robles area, and he did a very good job of it, and he was working with high school kids. But I'm just
Pat,
kind of
I've, I've seen it
curious,
done. I've seen it done
what's that?
with with elementary kids.
Did you seen the kettlebell stuff?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, I
Have
mean
you
the high
seen,
school, the
was
high
it about technical lifting or was it about numbers?
no, no, no. They would do 5 reps
So just keep it low rep.
of yeah, and
Yeah.
then and you know they he really stressed the technique and now not all the kids, which was not right, but most of the kids had pretty decent technique. But again, it's they're doing 5 reps, right? And so and it's not perfect. It's not like if when I coached it, you know, I don't. So the one thing that, and here I'll tell you this, the one thing I don't like about kettlebells for kids is that it anytime you swing, it lengthens the center of gravity. So
Well,
and
and I'm going to say that in that video, those videos were not the kettlebell swings that we normally see.
Mm.
no,
Those were
I
more
understand that. I
vertical.
understand. I no, I understand that. But the if you watch kids, and we all know that it's not going to be like that. That girl's
Right.
had I don't know how many years of experience, right? So we're looking at two different things. And his 3 kids both had back problems, or both, all 3 of them had back problems. Now, I will say I don't know if that was inherited or it was caused by the kettlebells, or the not the kettlebells, the training with the swings and the snatches and all that kind of stuff. I don't know because they all started when they were very very young, like 4 and 5 years old, and so I don't like a swing for most elementary kids. Junior high kids is fine. Um, uh, they can do a hip hinge with a band, they can do an RDL, all those kinds of things, and that's fine. I just think that the kettlebell swing or any swinging type of movement with the kettlebell for young kids, especially beginning kids, is a dangerous thing to do.
It's
Just my
very
opinion.
possible.
I I
Yeah, no, and
I could
what's
I could be
interesting?
absolutely wrong.
Well,
Yeah, I
what's
could.
interesting, and I've talked to some of my guys that I've coached over the years that have come out of the high school program and the middle school program, and then they got old. They went to the military, and this is why I want to get Enrique's input here, is that in the military, they had things where they came out injuries, so now they're not using bars; they're using kettlebells because the kettlebell is not. They're not capable. They have issues with back issues, and they use kettlebells instead of the bar.
The
And
ke-
so,
the the kettlebell is a great tool,
yeah,
but again, it's a tool. It's a great tool, but it's a tool. Like a
yeah.
dumbbell or barbell, they're all tools, right? And it's
Yeah,
how
but
you
it's
do it.
right how you do it. And a lot of people do have back injuries or hurt backs when they swing in that straight arm position that almost every trainer teaches because they don't understand the sport. Go on, Kitty.
Well, I think you nailed that when you said the difference between the Russian pull and the Russian pull and the American pull. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, and again, Enrique comes also from not only from a military background with the Marines, but also from a CrossFit background. And I wanted to know his input on what he's doing from the Marine Corps as we get to that point of questions and answers. So let's go ahead and finish this.
Okay.
And I think
Yeah,
you've got
sorry.
some questions to
Yeah,
ask. And
just some last little bits. So I want to talk about the equipment itself because we use competition kettlebells. So basically, that is our regular adult size competition kettlebell. It has usually a 33 millimeter handle and usually a window about that shape, and then it's a ball. So I have bells like this size from 4 kilos all the way up to 26, and they all look the same.
wow.
And what I showed here was my friend Moses created smaller bells that translate similar in shape, but are just smaller for children to handle. He uses this one. He calls his kids bells. He does these in 2, 4, and 6 kilos. These are transition. They're a little heavier between 8, 10, and 12, and then in the adult size. So in Russia, they have ones these size for kids and 4 kilos that they use. And we've actually seen them, like one was brought to a competition back in California about 10 years ago. And we thought they're the cutest thing. We were like, these are so cute. What are these? And we needed them. That's where Moses got inspired to try to recreate them here in the United States.
So so in Russia they don't have 2 kilo increments, I'm assuming.
They do. They do now.
Really?
Yeah.
I like the old way.
Because it's just hard to go from a 12 kilo to a 16 kilo without that 14 in the middle.
So so to hear to so that's an interesting point, but you have to do the 12 until it makes you strong enough to go to the 16 or whatever the next one is.
Right. So usually
Yeah,
what my
and I really like that
yeah,
for
so a
some
lot of
reason.
times what happens is like using these bells here because
Right.
this is a 4, this is actually an 8, and that's a 12. What you would do is maybe a strength and conditioning coach to get them closer to that 16, work a lot with the 12, maybe a lot more higher reps per arm or something with the lighter weight to build the endurance, and use maybe ladder drills to start to creep up to the 14 to get to the 16. So like I'll do maybe a ladder drill where I start off a minute with a 12, maybe a minute with the 14, and maybe 30 seconds with a 16. So that when I go back down to my 12, it's starting to feel a little lighter.
Those those adult kettlebells also are about the same height as a barbell, right?
I think
When you put a
so.
40 when you put a 20 kilo when you put a bumper plate on it, 20 kilo bumper plate on it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I,
So so
yeah, probably
so it
kind of
makes them
close to it.
so Pat, it makes them perfect to teach a pull.
Mm-hmm.
So I,
Yeah,
that's
because
how I start with those and start teaching a pull that way
yeah, I mean
because
you
they're
can use
about the
these.
same height as a barbell.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can just pull them up with just your arms too without a swing. I mean, you can use them as if they were a barbell as well.
Yeah.
And so let's see, for my last little two here, here's some pictures of some kids using kettlebells. These are obviously some competitions in Russia. And young lady here using a 16 kilo. There's some boys there using 224s. And it looks like a jerk competition. So just from the chest rack up to the overhead. This was a young lady in my friend's gym, and he's outside of St. Louis, Missouri. So obviously, she took that 2 kilo and went 170 reps in 10 minutes with a snatch. So there's some kids that can go the whole 10 minutes. My friend Moses sent bells to people, so he like sent this little girl a little bell, and she's just carrying around like it's something fun to do.
How heavy is that? How heavy is that one right there that she's got?
Two
Is that
kilo.
like a 2 kilo bell?
Hmm.
Wow. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah,
Pat will be ordering some tomorrow for his grandkids.
I know. I'll get you Moses' number. And this bat here is just showing some moms and kids in a park. They're just kind of playing around with bells. Here's my friend Moses. He actually did a workshop with these kids. And so you can see them all holding bells over their head. That's a 6 kilo. The blues are 2, yellows are 4. You know, and here's some of them just having fun juggling with them in their front yard. Yeah, so most done a pretty good job of getting the bells out there with some of these kids, and they have fun with it. And I like to end what I call kettlebell sport math because we were talking about heavyweight and low reps before. since we focus on higher, lighter weight and higher reps, if you add up how much poundage we put over our head or we are moving, you can basically say you did a ton of work, literally. And again, it's
For sure.
more, I'd say what's more applicable to sports and who lifted more, because most everyday life, you're not going to lift 300 pounds even once. But I can guarantee you, you probably will pick up 17 pounds 200 times at some point, especially if you're helping somebody move. You probably are doing this one right here, this 12 kilo, moving boxes.
So tell me again how this is applicable to sport.
It gives you, to me, it gives you a gas tank of endurance for sports. And
How much endurance do I need to be a shot putter?
well, I guess it depends on how many heats there are in a meet.
Well, but look at the activity, and the activity, I don't know, takes a couple of seconds, and then it's followed by a long period of rest, right? So why would a shot putter need to do 100 reps
I think you
at
have to
one
with it. I think you would probably, I
at,
think if you're,
at one
I'm just
time?
saying, I think if you're dealing with the shot putter, you're going to train a shot putter. If you're going to do things with the kettlebell, it's probably going to be a little different than what you're going to do with
Mhm.
a distance runner, let's say.
Well, yeah, but again, that's my point. It's it's great, but it's got to be tailored to the needs of the
Of the
sport,
sport.
Mhm.
Yeah.
right? So you just can't throw a blanket statement out there and say, well, look how much more work I'm doing if I'm doing a 12 kilo kettlebell for 100 reps. Oh, gee, I'm doing 1,200 kilos, right? Well, shot putter, I'm throwing a 16-pound shot or whatever it is, and I'm doing it one time every 10 minutes. So
It
that,
didn't the Russians say that you had to have some type of cardio, even if you're just a weightlifter?
oh,
Because
no,
that's
no,
kind
no,
of
I'm
similar
not,
to a
no,
shot
no,
putter.
no. Well,
No, I'm
I was
just
just going to
asking,
say
didn't they
that.
say you
Yes,
still had to have some cardiovascular? Because
yes,
cardiovascular helps in recovery for the next set.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that this is wrong. All I'm saying is that you have to tailor. You can't just make a blanket statement and say that you're doing more work doing 1,200 kilos than I'm doing lifting 150 pounds, you know, 3 times. Okay, because it depends on the sport
Absolutely.
and or what the need is. Now, you're exactly right. And when I use kettlebells to for what we would call cardiac output or
Yeah.
cardio, oh sure, by all means, there's nothing wrong with it. And so again, I love kettlebells, but you just have to be careful how you say that last statement. Is all I'm trying to
I think
say.
the kettlebell, just off the top of what you're saying, and just off the top of my head, the kettlebell might be, because we do know they need some cardio for recovery, the kettlebell
Mm-hmm.
may be a better way of getting some cardio work in with like a, you know, a what's
I'm
that
not.
guy, Crowther? What's that guy like? I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
I,
yeah.
I don't think I want him to go out and run 10 miles, or I'm
No,
not, but I might be able to enhance his cardiovascular through a kettlebell with a lot
yeah.
better efficiency. That's better for him in terms of his
Mhm.
sport than doing running. You know, I'm
Well,
just thinking that's a
It's
possible.
probably easier on his joints too.
Exactly,
To do
exactly.
the kettlebell. So that's why I'm saying, I really like the kettlebells and do all those things, and you can do all those things with it. You just can't make a blanket statement that's gonna help you
Yeah,
or
everything has to be broken down to
Right.
right,
what the
right,
sport is
right.
and what you're
Yeah,
using it
yeah.
for.
So I'm not
Totally
I'm
Yeah,
agree.
not
that's kind of
disagreeing with
where
her. I'm just
Y'all's
trying to help
knowledge
her
come
say
into
say
play.
it.
I was just trying to show the
Yeah,
different movements that we do and kind of some of the training that I have. Um, and then trying just
yeah,
to
but
at least get that into maybe some basics for the kids so they're,
no,
fun juggling and
yeah, and what you're doing, or what you're saying, I think is exactly right. I may disagree with how you do it or how you get there, but that's neither here nor there. But what you're saying is exactly right, and a kettlebell is a great tool to do those things with, and that's why I like the kettlebell, for those things, because the kids, we always talk about work capacity, Pat, in weightlifting. Well, most kids don't have the work capacity. Well, with the kettlebell, I can do a lot of different things, and I can build their work capacity at the same time.
Mhm.
And so,
So
from that standpoint, plus, if my goal is more strength, I can cut the reps down and do it that way.
Mhm.
So the kettlebell is a great tool. I wish at the school I just left, we had probably about 20, 25 sets of them and that's two pairs each, from 4 kilos to uh, 40 kilos, 48 kilos.
Mhm.
We had them on every platform. We had 20 platforms, and so they're great. Just, but again, they're a tool just like anything else. So
I'm going to put a little pressure on somebody here. Enrique, I want you to undo your mic and I want you to introduce yourself because he is from a military background and I know, how do you guys use these things in the Marine Corps?
Hey guys, how you doing? Nice to meet everyone. Enrique Laguna. Thanks for having me, Coach. So just a little bit on the background. Retired Marine of 24 years. I've been doing fitness since before I joined the Marine Corps, but then found more organized methods of training folks once I joined the military and started my journey of being a trainer slash coach while being in the Marine Corps. Um, and like Pat said, been doing CrossFit for a long time, traditional weightlifting, powerlifting, obviously USA weightlifting coach, and now also a an official. So my wife and I are both really involved in the sport. As far as the kettlebells in the Marine Corps, for all the programs that I've developed to include the CrossFit programs that I incorporated in the training for my Marines. Definitely will agree with the statement that it is a great tool. I don't know much about, introducing it to younger kids or in schools and stuff like that. I've never been a teacher. I've never been a PE teacher or anything like that. So not really, can't really give my opinion on it. But we definitely do use it as a tool um, to, one, work on um, mobility, work on technique when certain folks can't do certain things with a barbell or with a set barbell and weight, and then to mimic movements that Marines do as far as carrying loads from point A to point B at a at a quick rate. So um, one of the biggest things that, believe it or not, we do have to teach a lot of Marines is the hip hinge, and it's something that a lot of Marines are just not coming into the Marine Corps knowing for some reason. Maybe they're just not athletic, so the hip hinge, which allows them to do a myriad of a lot of different movements, from getting up from the ground to lifting something from the ground to getting up over obstacles. That hip extension and the production of core to extremity power output is just very essential to what we do. So um, that's basically what we do with the kettlebells. Other than obviously, yes, some of the more high intensity tactical trainings that we do, where we do multiple sets, multiple reps just to increase the workload, train uh, the cardiovascular capacity, increase VO2 max, therefore leading to quicker recovery, which translates over to combat where they would have to be doing operations for multiple hours, multiple days with very little sleep and very little food. So, and that's another thing that I, also can't really say that I'm experienced with programming for athletes, right? Because athletes have a specific goal, they have a specific training season, specific training cycle, which they can easily fall into. With Marines, it's very difficult to do something like that because everything from field exercises to duty to deployments to access to certain equipment, we are constantly just moving that. So Veronica and I both have always had the discussion with many of the folks that work at the Semper Fit division for the Marine Corps base that as much as we want to try and incorporate a good cycle of training, you're just never going to be able to do it with a military group, especially an active duty military group. I'm not sure about what the reserves are. I mean, reserves may have more of a stable schedule, but
Do
and
you
then once again,
guys
yeah.
do you guys teach more of that Russian swing than the American swing?
So yeah, we do more of the Russian swing. Once again, just because the majority of the Marines coming in are very, very low athleticism. It gives them a less chance of the overhead, you know, shoulder mobility. If they don't have that mobility to get overhead or whatever the case may be, sometimes maybe a strength thing. But usually it's just the American, so eye level out in front.
Okay.
And then a lot of load carrying, right? Suitcase carrying. Once we do get them trained up to where they can actually hold a kettlebell overhead, which is kind of like the example that was given at the beginning of the slideshow there. We try to get them to do some, overhead, walking, moving loads overhead, lunging, stuff like that, just to work on core strength, core stability. Um, Mainly so that when they're going those long rucks with heavy packs, that core is basically what saves them specifically for the back injuries. Because see, me growing up and being in the Marine Corps from like the late 90s and the early 2000s, there wasn't very much focus on training a Marines core because everybody thought that your core is just your abs, when in reality it's more than that. So, my generation, we retired with a lot of back problems. So we recognize that. So now we're developing programs that include a lot of overhead stuff with both kettlebells, dumbbells, barbells, etc. And this is why the Olympic weightlifting is something that Veronica and I have pushed a lot for Marine training because it does develop a very strong core that transfers over to a lot of the activities that military personnel do on a daily basis.
I remember Waddington was telling me he was trying to do some weightlifting stuff in basic. Are they using kettlebells in basic at this time?
I haven't really checked lately on what they're doing as far as incorporating kettlebells. In my day, when I went through basic training, we did not do any kettlebells. I think they're still sticking to the basic kind of like the way the military trained, just having basic obstacles, sit-ups, push-ups, pull-ups. Um, Now, since we have the CFT, that's also something which is the combat fitness test, something where they incorporate a little bit more weight, but it's more of like carrying your buddy or carrying ammo cans and stuff like that. Um, this the tempo of basic training is so fast that as much as I agree that a lot of movements and a lot of things that we want to incorporate into it would be beneficial, there just wouldn't be enough time to teach these kids coming through basic training proper mechanics, proper movement, and get them out of there without injury.
So that would be something they would do after they get out of basic, then they start incorporating that stuff.
Correct. Yeah. So once they get into like for example, their military occupational skills school, where they are just attending, the training for whatever their job is going to be in the military, they have a little bit of a slower tempo there, where the instructors actually have to have a developed scheduled PT program. And that's what I did when I was the academics officer here at 29 Palms at the communication school. Is we ran scheduled classes where we did a workout with whatever the methodology would be, whether it would be weightlifting, cardiovascular, or some kind of calisthenics. It was like every class came at a scheduled hour, and we focused on movements, basic technique, and then more than anything else. And we would hope that they would take what they learned in our class and then take it to the weight room, which most of them would end up going to after they got off class or whatnot.
Okay, I'm going to give you an assignment now. I'm really glad you're on here, and I want you to keep coming on because I want us to see a military point of view. Because I think that when we develop our physical education programs, have got to start looking at the military stuff because actually the physical education programs of the 60s and the 50s were based on the military stuff. Like I have a copy of the 1946 Army fitness test. And if you look at the La Sierra program in the 50s and 60s, you're going to see a lot of that. And that was put into play by Eisenhower because these guys came out of the World War II and they were looking at the fitness levels. So what I want, if you don't mind doing it, I want you to start putting together some kind of a presentation that you would say how you would incorporate this once to get these guys into this after they get out of boot camp. Because this is, when you watch come on, movies like, American Sniper and stuff, you see these guys lifting. And so and I know that what you guys told me is that they have these boxes that are basically C-vans that they send on with these guys. So if you don't mind putting together something like what you guys were doing to incorporate, kettlebells and weightlifting into their training after they got out of boot camp, I think that would be a neat presentation if you don't mind doing that. Can I
I
give
mean,
you that
like
assignment?
what I would think would be kind of like the ideal program to do after boot camp, like what I was just explaining. Yeah, I
Yeah,
could
and what
basically
you guys
just
were
kind of
doing with them.
yeah, I could just basically you know put
Or
something together of what I was doing at the schoolhouse here in 29 Palms, and
Yeah, that'd be cool.
yeah.
yeah,
That'd be good.
I'd actually be curious to see from you, Enrique, what would you do if you had the opportunity to pre-train somebody before boot camp?
So, I mean, there are programs that the recruiters have out there. It's
Okay.
called the pool lead program. So as soon as like, someone shows up to their office and they start talking, they're interested in joining, they have what's called the pool lead program, and the recruiters have um, you know, sessions that where they anyone who is starting the discussion and wants to get ready to go to boot camp, they'll take them out and do some of the workouts that we do. They'll go running, they'll go do some calisthenics, they'll do some parts of the physical fitness test and the combat fitness test. Um, and I think some of them are starting to incorporate some of the more of the functional fitness stuff that is, out now that is very popular. Um, so yeah, that's just something that it
Okay.
it's just for the recruiters. The recruiters would be the ones that would be developing that, just because there's a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Liability and kind of legal things that happen when they're not actual recruits, right? They're just some high school kids that are just coming into the office and want to hang out with Marines, because that's usually what happens. It's what I did. I just showed up and like, hey, I want to be a Marine. They're like, hey, come run with us. And I would just show up every Saturday and just hang out with them. But I had not signed anything. I had not been to boot camp. I had not done anything. So those guys are technically responsible if something happens to those guys during one of their sessions. So they try to minimize how much they do and what they do with them, just because of that portion, the safety and liability portion of it.
No, it makes sense.
What would
Yeah, I was just kind of thinking because we're thinking with kids or, youth, how do we prepare an 18-year-old boy to get into boot camp or
Yeah, a good
whoever?
question.
would you, I guess I would like to see, and again, maybe what would you recommend for a kid that's, he's going to turn 18 in June and he's going through the last 6 months of his senior year
Mhm.
and he wants to go into boot camp right after he signs. What would be a program that you might assign him to do? What would be an example? I mean, I'm not asking you to do that right now, but
Yeah, yeah, right.
kind of think about it and say, okay, this is kind of what would I tell him to do that I'm not liable for what he's doing, but he could be doing it at school. through his PE
Hmm.
classes and stuff, like, maybe it's like through my son or something. Because my son had, like, I think there were three kids he had this year. They were going in right after they graduated, and they were going Marine Corps. So what would be the types of things you might tell some kid to do as he's in that situation? So maybe even drum something like that out that we can put out there. And see, I'd like to also say that's something that we put your name on and say maybe send that to Shape America and say this is what you need to do with these guys too. Because Grant, I just told him, I said the other day, I said find me 10 tests other than the fitness gram, which is a garbage test they can do that would actually help them to be better fit. And so a teacher could evaluate something and evaluate power and not only just strength, because a push-up is more of a strength thing, but what could they do for power, like a three standing long jump succession, stuff like that, or even do stuff like this with a kettlebell. What kind of a program would you kind of put together that we could maybe submit to some program somewhere, and then you go do a talk on it? I'd like to see you do something like that. Yeah, because I really appreciate your expertise over this stuff because over the time we've known each other, and that's why I'm glad you're in here because I want to get everybody's opinion in as we talk about these things with people. So,
Yeah, I could definitely put something as a baseline, that we can start talking about. Because I think, you know, even though, yeah, I was in the Marine Corps, the military, and there's a lot of kind of like personal things that I would do. It's always good to just put minds together and brainstorm on how some of my ideas could be tweaked a little bit. Because, in reality, I sometimes I think that I could develop the best program, but I know that there's like you, coach, you taught me so much when it came to Olympic weightlifting, and sometimes I thought I was like you know the greatest gift to the Marines, teaching them Olympic weightlifting, and then I would watch you coach and be like, oh, that cue is pretty good. Oh, that makes sense. And so it's I think it would be more of a discussion starter for all of us, whoever joins in, just so that I can put out there, hey, here's the expectations, here's what I think would work. Let's see what what some of the other minds have have to
start
say
working on
about
it,
it.
and we'll
Yeah.
stick you in here in the next month or two, and somewhere between now and August, and just get ready to roll and have something together, and then we'll make you one of the people that's talking on one of these nights, and then you get Grant to tear you apart because he's good at that, right, Grant? Are you there? No, he's always good. He's going to ask questions. He just
I'm
asks
here.
good questions, like, why are you doing this? And because everything we need to do, we need to have a why, a what, and a how on what we're doing.
No,
And that's
definitely.
something out
Yeah.
of Simon Sinek's leadership stuff. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
Anybody have any other questions for Michelle about stuff at all?
I got no idea who Simon Sinek is.
I liked, what'd you say, Grant?
I got no idea who Simon Sinek is.
You're speaking too low, man. I can't hear you.
I'm in second.
Yeah, I have no idea who that guy is that you just talked about. Simon Sinek or whatever his name is.
Larry?
About Simon Sinek? The why, what, and the
Who is
how.
he? Who is he?
Who is Simon Sinek? He's a guy that wrote a couple books on, motivational type stuff. And the why and the what and the how is after a book. It's called The Why or something like that, if I remember the name of the book. I'll call you and I'll give you some of his information.
All right,
I'll call and give it to you. But if
that's
nobody
fine.
else has any other questions, Michelle, thank you. Uh, like I
Very
said,
good.
that's a pretty
Very good.
cool presentation. You know, she picked that up, and then if not, I think we're on in 2 weeks again, right? If I remember correctly. I don't know what it is in 2 weeks, but I'll send something out here in the next couple days for everybody. And so if I look at my calendar,
Yeah, it
we're
should
on the
be
30th. And after the 30th, we're taking about a month break because everybody's going, including me, going on vacation. And I'm not going to do one of these from Hawaii. So
Why
yeah,
not?
let's
Well,
Huh?
I'll
Why
be on
not?
vacation on the 30th myself, so that'll be just
You
after
guys
my
will probably be
competition. I'll
yelling
be in
at me if I'm in
Boston.
Hawaii. You'll be telling me why didn't I bring you and not, why did I instead of my family? I know what you're
Well,
going to
you're
tell
right
me,
about
Grant.
that. You're right about that. But
You could just hold it. You could just hold this conference in Hawaii. How about that?
I'm going to be swimming at the beaches in Hawaii, but yeah, we'll have another one on the 30th. I'll send a power thing out. I will call Zoom tomorrow and find out why the last couple meetings we've had so many issues though, and see if I can square that away. And maybe it's just me learning how to do things better because I'm not the technical guru that I would like to be. But so I'll send out a thing here in the next couple days on the Zoom invite, and then I'll talk to the Zoom guys and square it away. And thank you again, Michelle, and thank you, Enrique, for jumping in with us. And we look forward to a lot of your input. Grant, we always like your questions. Larry already signed off, so he probably went to bed. But thank you, everybody, and I'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
All right. Have a good
Pat,
one. Take care,
Pat,
everybody.
Pat, Pat, stay
Yes,
on,
yes,
stay
okay,
on,
Here.
okay,
and y'all can stay on. I just want to talk to Pat about something. But if you
okay.
want to sit and listen to us, you're fine.
I want to
Um,
listen because I like learning
oh,
from you guys.
okay, that's fine.
Go
So,
for it. What's that?
so, uh, that stuff you had me doing. Um, so Michelle, he wants to come up with some tests, like you said
Mhm.
earlier. So, do you remember the Mentorin test where you would jump up and spin around and see how far you could go around? Do you remember that?
I don't know what it was called, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I remember that. Yeah. Did all that.
So, um, so I'm including that. I'm also
Okay.
including a hand dynamometer test,
Yeah, I think
and
that's really important because there's so much out there on the importance of hand strength from the area of a young kid to a point
yeah,
of older people. It's such a
yeah.
dynamic test to see where they're at, and it's lost. And I actually asked one time when I was talking to that college professor, and one of these guys came up. It was Joe Eisenman, by the way, and gave me this garbage about how he was involved in the making of the fitness gram. I said, then why didn't you do this? There's so much stuff out there, and he had no answer for it because he's a guy that doesn't really work with kids, and he's this PhD guy, and he just had no answer for it. And it's such a great test because it tells you so much. I mean, what were you saying, Grant? That the other day you were telling me they were doing it on people after something. Was it
Oh,
batters or?
oh, no, no, the hockey players. So hockey does it every day to test recovery,
Yeah,
so or give them a readiness or a score or something, and
yeah,
so which I thought was pretty interesting.
yeah.
Um, so so anyway, what I came up with is like 5 tests,
You only
and
got five to
then
go.
no, no, no. So here's why I don't want to do more than 5. Okay,
Okay.
is because one, it takes too long. Okay, and so I'm trying to um and so, not a lot of places have climbing ropes anymore.
Right.
So what I did was I kind of combined the Russians uh, with Lafayette, and I'm taking ideas from both of them.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
And so and instead of having norms or establishing norms, what I'd really like is that each school or district have their own norms. So they go through and they test the kids, because if you live down south or out west, you're going to be faster. Chances are they're going to have more fast kids than people in the Midwest. And so if you and it's better if you have norms or I mean better if you establish your own norms
Mhm.
than it is to copy somebody else's.
I like that idea because I think what you're doing is you're making it appropriate for the school's
Yes.
population
Mhm.
and improving whatever they're at by what they can do. So I think
Right.
that makes it very achievable, and that's what kids need too.
So so the other thing, that's a very good point, Shell. The other thing that with the hand dynamometer, there's a thing called a N-Haynes normalization, where you take their height, their body weight, and their what they tested on the hand dynamometer, and you put it into formula, and it comes out in a percentile, and you can rank the kids no matter how big and no matter their size.
Mhm.
And so each
Just based
so
on the hand dynamometer.
yep,
Wow, that's interesting. Wow.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So well, because the bigger kids obviously should be squeezing harder than it's like a Sinclair formula for hand dynamometer testing.
Mhm.
Right, right.
And so I'm making norms for each age, or not, I'm
Mhm.
not making norms, but I'm setting it up so that you have each age. And so then what I'm going to do is I'll make a spreadsheet with all the testing data, and we'll have the conversions in there and everything else, so they don't have to do any of the math. It'll already have it. So I've got some of the ones I'm thinking about is a standing long jump, a 10-meter sprint, um, some sort of 600-meter run walk thing.
Mhm.
Um, these are for elementary. Push up and maybe an inverted row test, and then you have the hand dynamometer and height and weight, and I can't remember the other two. I think there was two other. Oh, the Matoran test and a balance test where you have to walk on line with your eyes closed, and you have to judge where the end of the tape is.
Where's your
So
change
so
in direction?
well, and then that's right. Then the shuttle run.
So now you're up to about 10 different things.
Well, no, five or six active ones that you have to test, and then the hand dynamometer isn't any big deal, and the Matoran test and the balance test aren't any big
I know
deal.
that's what I want. I want the five, and this is what these are the five you should do. Here's five more if you want to do, type of thing.
Yeah.
And that gives them 10. You can never give these guys enough because they're too lazy to figure it out, you know. But the thing that we can suggest to them is these are the five definites, and then these are some other alternatives that you can also do, you
So
know.
so so in some cases the Russians actually do that on their GTO tests.
Mhm.
So they'll have like you can run 600 meters or you can ski 1,000 meters or whatever it is, right?
Yeah,
And you have a choice.
yeah.
And so I'm toying with that idea. I don't
No,
know
that's
if I
great.
really want to do that, but I'm toying with it. So is that
That's
is that
great.
where you wanted to go with it?
Yeah, that's where I want
Yeah.
you to
So
go.
that's why I was late on the phone
You
call because
know,
I was talking to a friend of
that's
mine's
what I want you to do. And once
professor.
we get something like that spreadsheet will be great because we can put into maybe do something in shape and bring us all to Shape America, and or even do a what they call a pre-con at the NSCA, where we might have a 3-hour pre-con where we can introduce they could introduce some tests, but we could also introduce how to do a kettlebell correctly, not this American swing that's damaging everybody, and then do some basic things about movement development over a 2 or 3 hour period. So I think that would be great. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
you know.
That's all.
So
That's all I wanted.
Yeah, I
So,
like it.
or the fact you need to fly me out to Hawaii so we can sit and discuss this.
you just want to
It
fly to
looks like you got
Hawaii
the
and sit
shirt
on it.
already.
That's
No,
what you
no,
really want.
no,
That's what you
no,
really
no,
want.
no, no. It's strictly business. Taking care
So
of business. I'm gonna
should
give
I
me a.
develop this into next year's vacation trips that we all fly
Oh,
out somewhere and sit on a balcony on the beach?
oh. I don't care. Well, I don't. I don't care about the rest of them. Just me. That's the one I care
We
about.
just
Just me
okay.
going. You know.
Now we're
And I'm
getting
thinking.
down to the nitty gritty of this.
I'm thinking this year we could run it as an experiment.
There
You
you go.
know.
There you
And then next year, Michelle, you might be on the docket there, darling.
go. I get it. I got it. Oh God.
Love it. It's funny.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You're getting the gist of what I want because I want to be able
Okay.
to push this off somewhere, as we do this stuff and go there. I probably should turn off the recorder here, huh? But
Yeah,
no, we
probably
don't have
fine.
to because you told me not to. But no, that's what I want to do. Yeah,
You can always cut it out.
yeah.
So,
I don't know how to do
um,
that, so don't swear or say anything bad about somebody.
by the way,
All
did I
right.
tell you about? Did you
You want
hear
me to
about?
record this? You want me to record
Yeah,
this?
yeah. Hey, go up to your um um go up to the very top of your screen where it says Zoom Workplace, and you should
Okay.
have some. It should say Meeting View, Edit, Window, and you being the host might have some other things.
Am I going to punch Zoom Workplace? I don't get anything up there. Over on the other
No,
side, I have a
it's on
view
the left side. Yep, yep, yep.
left
Okay.
side. I don't have
So
anything up there.
click on all those things.
I don't have that up there. It doesn't say anything. It
You
says
just
Zoom
said it had.
Workplace.
You said it has
What's it?
view.
Oh,
You
there's a
said it
view
has
thing. Yeah, but
view.
that's over on the right.
Okay. All right. Well, wherever it is.
It says speaker gallery, multi-speaker, immersive, sort
Okay.
by gallery, all that.
Okay. Okay. Click on those, and somewhere in one of those, I think you can mute and unmute people.
Mm.
Sort by gallery. Nope. Follow host orders. I don't see anything on that. I was looking for that earlier.
It'll say
Yeah.
mute audio.
Like down on the bottom, it has host tools, and it says I
Okay.
can
Yeah.
have
Look at that.
unmute by themselves, and that's on there. That's one of the things that's checked.
Okay. All right. So uncheck it and see what it says.
It just says nothing. Can you undo yourself now?
Let me see.
So I can still unmute myself. Are you still there? Can you unmute yourself, or are you muted? All right, so I get it. I put unmute yourself, so unmute yourself.
Okay. Yep. There you go.
Yeah.
So
So
so it doesn't say you can unmute. Like it didn't say anywhere on there you can unmute me.
now I'm gonna call those guys tomorrow and just learn some stuff because they have, they don't mind you calling them and learning stuff. So I'll give them a call and see what they say. I'll explain to them my problem and go from there.
Explain to him you
'Cause
got an 85-year-old guy that has no idea what he's doing.
yeah, that's right. I don't, and I'm only 75, only 74 until September 6th. Then I'm 75.
I'm talking
Don't
about Larry.
advance me too fast.
I'm talking about poor
No,
Larry.
Oh, Larry.
I'm almost there.
Good. So yeah. So
Anyway,
Very good.
anyway that's what I was that's what I was thinking. I just wanted to run that by you while I had you on the
yeah,
phone.
that's good. That's good.
I called you this afternoon, but you didn't answer. So
I
that's
was on a phone call. My aunt passed away,
oh
and you happened to call me when I was talking to my cousin, trying to square away things because there's things I had to square away with my tribe, and just she needed certain information like where my aunt was born. This is my cousin because she's my aunt's husband's daughter because my
Uh-huh.
aunt didn't have any kids. So she needed where my aunt was born, and hell, I'm gone. I don't know. Actually, looking up stuff from my grandmother's is buried at the San Fernando Mission
Oh
Cemetery out
wow.
in San Fernando. But the interesting thing is, I found where she bought a plot in the St. Francis Cemetery in Phoenix, Arizona, and I'm going. The woman had two plots and she's not buried in one of them, and I go, I don't
Wow.
know what the hell that's all about. Then I found a thing that said that my grandmother, when she did that, had listed her relatives, like her
Hmm.
brothers and sisters, and then she listed her own children, and then my grandmother had a sister who was born. My grandmother was born in 1906, but she had a sister that was born in 1904, but died in 1906, about 6 months before my grandmother was born. And she had her listed there. Then she, down below, it had relatives who are deceased, and she has a sister who died at birth, unnamed. And I'm going, hell, I do not know who that. I didn't even know that person existed. I know when I go to Oklahoma, when I go to Fairfax, because one of my great aunts told me this. They showed me where her name was May, the one that passed away a year and a half, and she's got this little grave marker that's about a foot and a half high, maybe about a foot wide, and it's away from everybody else in the family that are buried. It's just like over. So I always say I do. Every time I go visit May because she's by herself, you know. But I don't know who this other person. I never knew that my grandmother had another sister
Wow.
that
Wow.
that died. Now here's a weird one. The other day or last week, one time, my aunt um, woke up and made a comment. It says that my grandmother her mom wanted something to drink, and no, I don't know who that person is because that's not her real sister. So my question is, was my aunt talking about this sister that died at childbirth? Is that
Oh
who she
wow.
was seeing? And I don't
Possibly.
know. And I don't, that came together with me because she also, my mom, I should have had an older sister that died. My father was drunk and he got in an accident, and the baby was 8 months along and it died before. But
Uh-huh.
that's not how, and I thought, well, maybe that's it, but that's not how it's worded. It's not worded as unborn grandchild or that it's a sister who died in childbirth at birth, a sister. So there's
Wow.
another sister out there that I didn't even know about, and that
Really?
kind of answered, yeah, that kind of answered my question to if my aunt was talking to somebody, that could be who she was talking to about.
Wow.
I don't know.
Wow.
So it's weird. And what's really crazy is I was looking, my grandmother has all kinds of stuff, and my aunt gave me all this stuff. So I was looking through something today when I was looking for, make sure I had my grandfather's full name because she needed that and all this to make
Right.
out the death certificates and stuff. So Catholic Church thing, no, I don't know what it is. Anyway, I'm looking for this stuff and I found there's a museum on the reservation called the White Hair Museum, and the woman who donated that property was a woman that was involved and married to one of the people in the murders that did the
Uh-huh.
murders. And what she did is she gave her property instead of letting that, because a lot of stuff happened after they found out after they discovered the murders and they got solved, that kind of stuff. People were a little smarter. So what she did is instead of letting this guy take her land and her house that they lived in, she donated that to the Oklahoma Museum, and that's her house where this White Hair Museum is. But the thing is, my in the papers I found is this Mary Whitehair. So I have to go back and look at this book and see if that's who they were talking about. I always knew that I was related. The city of Pawhuska is named after a chief that was about the 1800s. And his name was Pahuska, which means white hair. And this lady was the last remaining living relative of him, when
Wow.
she died. So I'm looking at this going, Jesus, opening up another chapter in this thing, as I've looked this stuff up, because I did know, I just have to go back and check who it was because I know there was a relation through Whitehair and also through the, they have clans and bands. So the clan
Right.
that I belong, I asked this guy that wrote this book one time on the clans and bands. I said, if I give you some names, he said, give me some. So if I give you names, can you tell me the clan? And he said, yeah. So I gave him some names, and he said the Shih Tzu clan, which is the Peace Clan. And these are the guys that carried the pipe, and they're also what they call the Grand Chief, because there were clan chiefs and band
Right.
chiefs, and then the Grand Chief. And there were three different groups, but the Grand Poobah, let's say, always came from the Peacemaker clan, and
Wow.
I'm going, whoa, I didn't know these things. No, I know
Yeah.
those, but now I'm finding about this lady, so now I got to go back and do some more research and see if this lady is where she comes into my line and stuff like. Because I have like two three-ring binders with the stuff that are
Yeah.
the genealogies of all of the allottees and where they go back. So I can do that. And so now I have to go back and remind myself where this woman came from. There's another woman that wrote a book on our ceremonial dances, which is called the Alanchka. And I met her. She was a professor at a small college up in Kansas. And in her book, she says, I owe my Indian Osage heritage to this one woman. And I was talking to somebody at the dances one time at one of the dinners, and they said, she's here because that woman that she named would be my like great 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 grandmother. And
Right.
so I'm related to that woman, and I actually met that woman, her
Wow.
the great great granddaughter. So it's my grandmother always said we're related to everybody. So especially around Fairfax where all that happened. So it's
Yeah.
just really
Well,
kind of
cool.
interesting. I also am trying to
Cool.
find when I first ran for the council, the last one, this lady who's a Revard, she was just kind of uppity type of thing, and my grandmother never trusted the Revards over the, she said that we were related to them. So within an hour after I had put in my name, all of a sudden she comes to me at a restaurant and says, "I heard you put in for the council." I'm thinking, how the hell does she know this? It's a Revard. So this in the middle of the murders, one of the names that comes up to one of the guys that was in all the little haggles was a guy named Bill Revard. And when I looked him up, the only Bill Revard is a guy that was born in like 1950, about the same time I did, and he's buried in the cemetery. But I can't find his, if there's got to be another, this might be his dad, which means,
Right.
he was involved. He might be the white guy involved that married into that family and gave them the Revard, just like my great grandfather was the white guy that married
Yeah.
into the family and he was involved in this stuff because that's what they were doing. They were literally, they went there to marry Osages and steal their land and their money and kill them and steal their
Wow.
land and money.
Wow.
So it's kind of interesting because I can find out that this lady who thinks she's Miss Uppity Uppity, you're not, you have a sordid background too. Not that I would ever use that.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's just one of those things.
Yeah, you are.
Anyway, I'll let you guys go. And then,
All
but
right.
yeah, you're on the right track. You're on the right track, what I want.
Great.
Michelle, thank you. Good
Okay.
presentation. Look good. Thank you. Ask those questions when you go to
Thank you.
nationals, about that
I
stuff,
will.
because I'd like to know what their thoughts are. So well, that's good. And so
Absolutely.
Grant wants to know everybody's thoughts. All
I love
right,
this.
guys, we'll see you.
I love these discussions.
Have a
All
Yep,
good
right.
it's
evening.
See
great.
you
I love
later.
you guys' input. Take care, Al.
Bye.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.